light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
Hey guys, DCHL Devin here, and welcome to another episode of A Light in the Dark. And this will be the question and answer version of our episodes, and so let's go ahead and hop right into it. First question we have from our previous video is, Devin, if you could please, people around here I noticed aren't too sure about Mumaks. I noticed at a tournament I ran this past Sunday. Can you please explain a few things like how to properly stop one from destroying your army, using terrain for your benefit while playing with a Mumak or using terrain against a Mumak, and the general rule abiding use of one from turn to turn. I like Mumak stampeding, fighting, and possibly destroying its own troops. I believe some used it partially improperly recently. Thank you. So a bit of a tongue twister you got. So basically, he's trying to learn, in the gist of it, how do we deal with a Mumak hill? And when you look at the sum of a Mumak hill of just as one big creature, this is a pretty intimidating monster. But you're actually going to be really happy to know that actually taking one down is pretty simple. It's actually the person who's using one who has a harder time than the guy who's fighting against it. So let's go ahead and just break it down point by point. First off, the Mumak, let's look at it as some of its parts. Number one, and this is answering your first question, how do we stop it from destroying your army? The Mumak itself, of course, you know that every time it's wounded, it takes courage tests and such like that. Another part that it needs to be taken note of is the, and just so you, if you don't know, when it takes a courage test and it fails it, then it stampedes and it goes crazy and the opponent controls it. So another way to take care of a Mumak is to destroy the Howdah. You destroy the Howdah and the Mumak goes rogue. And how do you destroy the Howdah when it's defense 9 and 5 wounds? Siege weapons. Siege weapons can destroy it, and also concentrated bowfire. It can potentially take it down, though I prefer bowfire to be spent on the men or the beast itself. And then of course you got the men. So the first thing you want to destroy is the Mumak commander. So the Mumak commander sits, generally a lot of Mumaks will bring a special Muhad commander, the Beastmaster, and he'll allow it to take his courage of 5, and if not him, then the guy on top. Remember, the commander is the driver either on the top, in the tallest platform, or he's on the bifold. The Mumak takes the stat characteristics of those two exactly as if it was like a Cav model. So you have to recognize that the Mumak, when taking its test, so the first thing is you're going to fire at the Mumak, and then you're going to realize it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to run. And the reason why is because that guy hasn't been taken out yet. So your first target has to be to take out that guy on the bifold, or if he doesn't exist, then take him out on the top platform. You're going to need bowfire to do this. If you do not have bows, then that will be a problem, because then you have to engage this thing. Now, is it a problem if you have to engage him? No. If you have to engage a Mumak, Mumaks only have a fight of 4. And now, heroic strikes do affect the Mumak. What's happening is, it's not that the heroic strike is transferring to the Mumak, it's affecting the driver, but then the Mumak takes his fight value in the fight. So, but they're going to want to save their actions for heroic moves. With only a fight of 4, the Mumak will be outfought a lot. And although you can't trap one per se, you could still surround one and do some pretty heavy damage to it. So the dangers, of course, of surrounding it is that when you move it the next turn, it could trample over you. So you have to hope you get priority, move out of the way, and then have the evil guy, but you don't even know if you failed. But anyway, if you get him in combat, heroic strike with your heroes, and then just do tons of piercing strikes, everything possible, fainting, all that, and even stun. I'd highly recommend stun. Makes no sense that would affect him, but it does. So get a staff wielder and pretty much just absolutely fight him off that way. This is a lot easier said than done. This is a lot easier to do than it sounds. A lot of the power of the Mumak comes from when it moves, not in a fight. So the Mumak is actually going to have a lot of problems dealing with you in a fight. Anyway, getting back on the topic of that, when we talk about the Mumak, take out the guy on top, then start wounding it. All right? If you can't do that, engage it in combat. Do not be afraid to go into combat with the Mummak. In fact, charging it is probably the most advisable idea, just simply because the Mummak's going to be trapped and it can't move anymore. It can't do all those strength 9 hits. For those of you who don't know, when a Mummak moves over a model, it does 3 strength 9 hits to the target. So what do we do? Another one, and this actually feeds into your question, is what about terrain? And terrain is an excellent tool to stop a Mummak. Mummak can't even go in terrain. They actually can't go in any difficult terrain at all, and they can't even cross barriers that are more than 2 inches high. So they're extremely restricted on where it is they can actually go. This is your key. If you have any type of terrain and you have tons of bow fire, absolutely fight them from the trees. That is so much easier to do. If they happen to have multiple Mummak, then this actually is really your best friend. Now, multiple Mumaks, the more Mumaks there are, the harder they are to deal with. However, if there's just 2, which is generally all you're going to see in a tournament at most, then drive one Mummak into another Mummak. What this will do is the 3 strength 9 hits will be applied to the Mummak that you charged and the Mummak that did the charging. So both Mumaks will take a 3 strength 9 hits. Once they hit each other, those 3 strength 9 hits get applied, they'll fail their courage test, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. They literally will just start fighting each other, essentially, and they kill each other for you. So if the opponent's smart, he'll split them up a little bit, just so you can't do that. But it is a really nasty trick. If anything, you can drive them into walls, you can drive them into, which also, once again, 3 strength 9 hits to the wall, which does nothing in current SPG, and 3 strength 9 hits to itself. So this is a very, very easy way to take care of a Mummak, is just to drive them into each other. A lot of Mummak players will often take the Shadow Lord in order to make the Mummak viable. The reason why, of course, my first advice to you was to take out the guys on top. If you can't do that, then it doesn't fail its courage test because of the courage 5. So then you're going to have to take out the Shadow Lord first in order to take out them. And then you would do that with Legolas or a hell of a lot of luck. So really taking them down is actually not too difficult. You just have to sort of maneuver around them and just make sure you take down the drivers and you take down, start dealing wounds. If you have strength 3 shots, I'd absolutely say shoot at the Mumaks. Strength 3 on defense 7 is just 6, so it's not actually that hard to get. And yeah, I mean, hide in the woods. It's actually, like I said, people, not that difficult. This thing will go down. You'll probably end up controlling it more than your opponent, especially if you're evil, because then you can take a ring wraith and start controlling him. The Mummakil himself is not affected by magic, but the driver is. So just fire compels at the drivers and drive the Mummakil in a new direction. If not that, then just drain courage the heck out of it and make sure he always fails his courage. These are easy ways to take down a Mummak. Magic is not a Mummak's friend at all, so yeah, you'll easily take it down. So really the question, I think I've answered all your negatives on how to take down a Mummak. So how do we deal with it as far as if you're playing a Mummak? Actually, I think I'm making sure I answered all of your questions here. You said general rule abiding use of one from turn to turn. All right. So stampeding, yeah. Basically, you move in a straight line. Strength 8. A straight line, 8 inches. It does 3 strength 9 hits, and all those hits apply as it's going down the line. And every model you kill, he just keeps going until eventually he stops. So putting a doorstop on one of them is what I like to call it, like King Dane. If you happen to have him, he's an excellent doorstop to Mumaks because he literally can't be killed in 3 strikes. So he will stop a Mummak every time. So fighting, yeah, Mumaks horrible in combat, wouldn't do it, and possibly destroying your own troops. Now this is where we'll get into how do we use a Mummak. So let's say you have one and you're like, all right, with all these weaknesses I just talked about, how is it that you even get a Mummak into combat? How do you do it? Well, 1, you want to be as close as possible. Number 2, remember the upgrades that you get for a Mummak. So the strength 6 rocks are definitely something to bring. If you can absolutely do so. If you don't know, you can take an upgrade for a very nominal fee, and you can just arm all your Watchers of Karna with strength 9 rock or strength 6 rocks. And this will allow where if the opponent hides in woods and stuff like that, you're still a really viable threat. Granted, you have to take some in the ways, but you really don't care. Another thing you could do is repelling lines, put half trolls on top and drop them down. Repelling lines will allow you to charge after you have repelled down. It absolutely allows you to do that, unless you roll a 1. But any other result acts as if it was rolled on a 6. So that's a great way, in my opinion. You can get a lot of engagements off that way if they're toying with you. Those upgrades, the Beastmaster, just mentioned that, brings you to Courage 5. I'm trying to remember all the upgrades, but in Tusk Weapons, you should take Tusk Weapons. I personally always take Tusk Weapons. A 4th Strength 9 hit means all the world to me. I have failed before on 3 rolls. 4 rolls is just that extra assurance. Gnarled Hide is certainly an option. It makes you a lot tougher against bow fire. It is expensive as an upgrade, and probably the most expensive one. But basically boosts your Mumak to defense 8. I still recommend Rocks and Tusk Weapons as my favorites personally. But ultimately, yes. The men on top really affect your decision. If you're picking Rocks, use Watchers of Karna. I am not talking about the Watchers of Karna with 2 blades and 2 attacks. I am talking about the regular versions. You can do the other versions. For a little bit more points, you now get one that is good at charging. I would absolutely say take repelling lines if you're going to do that, though, because otherwise you're wasting the second attack, you're wasting Steely Nerve, you're wasting a lot of their abilities. So otherwise I just take the regular Watchers, throw rocks, and yes, they are poisoned. By definition, I know this is crazy, but they are poison. So let's go into some of the things here. If I'm controlling a Mummak, bring a horn. Put it on the Mummak. This is a great tactical option. I would absolutely, or don't put it on the Mummak and run him to the back of the field. It is a battlefield-wide effect, so just run him away. But if you are only controlling mobile forces, then absolutely take a horn and throw him on the Mummak. Then also have what I call bubble wrapping. So put him up on the front line, put the Mummak in the front, and then have your regular Warriors of Harad right in front of the Mummak. All right. The reason I say this is because if you lose priority, all right, at any point, your opponent, when he charges you, cannot stop your charge. He's only going to be charging your Warriors of Harad. Then just run him over. No one cares about your Warriors of Harad. So run them all over and crush the opponent. This will pretty much guarantee that you at least get one stampede off, or not stampede, but a trample off onto the opponent. All right, you really want to make sure, not barring if they're hiding in terrain, but otherwise, if they're in an open field, just move 6 inches. Or just move alongside your men. Don't move too far, and just keep on pace with them and trample through them when the time comes. So that's one thing. The horn is really to boost the courage, so that way you don't stampede as often. A courage of 4 going to a 5 works wonders. It'll be 6 if you have a Beastmaster, and even if you're just a regular Mummak, you go from 2 to 3, which is already worlds ahead of 2. So, also if you are the Mummak, remember that your heroic strikes do affect you. Your stats kind of swap, they carry over. Also, remember this, and when you're bubble wrapping behind, the rider counts as a mount to the Mummak. Now, if you know that mounts, all right, they're able to fight with their own weapons. So, like, for instance, Citadel Guard. For the Gondorians, Citadel Guard are armed with spears, all right? And because they have spears, they can technically support other cav. They can do this. No one really does it, but they can do it. A Mummak can do the same thing. It is so bizarre, it doesn't make any sense, but technically it can support just like any other mount can. So when you're bubble wrapping, you can absolutely apply that through because the mount can fight with his weaponry the same way the others do. Now, normally this shouldn't be the case, but it's just because of the weird finagling and ruling. I'm sure some people will disagree in the comment section below, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on why I might be incorrect on that one. It's such a gimmick that if I was wrong on it, it's not going to affect you. Bring the Shadow Lord, as I mentioned. He will protect your guys on top. And yeah, I mean, ultimately what you need to do is pin cushion them. your move of 8 is still really limited by the fact that you need to move in straight lines. So you need a way to hold them in place, hold the enemy down, and usually Cav are great for this. They can keep up with you, and you don't care about them. A lot of times the Cav, their only job is to rush into combat, deal those initial strength hits because of the fact that their lances are hard hitting, and then just crush them. And this is one of the best ways to get rid of to aid a Mumak is to use your Cav and just hit them on one side and then have the Mumak just run through them. If you run through a majority of their army, you will pretty much win the game. You're going to start to really cause a lot of problems. I would save your heroic moves. Now keep in mind, heroic moves do not affect a Mumak if it's not the Mumak commander. This is really, really important. All right, you cannot use the guys on the ground. Those heroic moves that you need for the Mumak are only affected by you. What you can do is, if you need to engage the enemy to hold them down and pin them in place, call a heroic move on the ground. It won't affect the Mumak. You grab up all those guys, you grab them in the fights where you know you don't mind losing your men, and then when it comes down to your turn, run through them. I personally save the might for heroic strikes. Just me personally. That's how I like to deal with things. If you must use one for heroic move, you can do so though. Other than that, that is pretty much it. Let me know if I've answered your question on that. There is a lot to a Mumak. We can absolutely play a bat rep with a Mumak and show you what I mean by a lot of these concepts that way. But yeah, definitely a little bit difficult to explain all of the nuances with it. Here, I actually wrote a couple notes actually just because it is so... Oh yeah, a Mumak can't be broken. So that's something in my notes here. The Mumak and all the guys on top, they're unaffected by broken tests. So that's awesome. That's something to note with you having, like, say if you bring 2 Mumaks, when you drive them in 2 different directions and such, they're completely unaffected. They'll have to take down both. Other than that, the last piece of advice I give, and probably the most important one, stay away from board edges. If the opponent runs you off of a board edge, you instantly die. So stay away from the board edges. Now, obviously, as I'm saying this to the pro Mumaks, if you're anti-Mumak and you hate the Mumaks, stay against the board edges. Force them onto your turf, force them where you need to be, and that is one way to take them out. Now, if you're pro Mumak and you see that BS they're doing, then drive your Cav. This is where you have your supporting units. Mumaks don't work without supporting models. And that is really important to note. Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on from that question. This video almost is entirely a Mumak video, I feel like. But we do have some other questions as far as, well, actually, you know what? All right, and so our next question will be from Jeremy Smith. He says, liking the new style of the vids. Nova question. For Middle-earth's deadliest heroes, that's what MEDH stands for, you are allowed 2 factions, but you can still add in heroes from the exception list, i.e. Gondor with Fellowship plus Thorn's Company. For doubles, can each player choose different factions plus exceptions, i.e. player 1 from with Gondor plus Fellowship, and player 2 with Durin's Folk plus Thorn's Company. For the Grand Tournament, can I take 1 faction with heroes troops from more than 1 exception list? Say Angmar plus the 3 trolls plus denizens of the dark and an independent hero or 2. Sorry this question isn't about elves, but more for future Light in the Dark episodes. So, to answer your question, it's actually 3 questions. Middle-earth's deadliest heroes. Can you add heroes from the exception list? The exception list only applies to the doubles and the GT. So I believe Middle-earth's deadliest heroes, you are actually restricted to just 2 factions in general, and then you're just kind of stuck there. So yeah, you cannot play any other hero. I'll let you know if that actually changes. I will make another announcement on this, but as of right now, from the way it was written, it says in the primer that doubles and GT, that's where those restrictions come into play. So yeah, just 2 factions. You shouldn't really have a problem with this. Overall, most of the good heroes that you would pick are kind of lumped into 1 or 2 factions. What this really prevents is Alfred being in every single army. So that's probably what it prevents. So if you want Alfred that badly, then you have to use up one of your alliances to get him. and also prevents like shades. People are going to play the shade, I think. Dwemer Lake, Witch King, Birder, they're all in there, and they're great heroes. But yeah, Alfred just won't be played as often. So other than that, though, your next question is the doubles. Can you choose different faction from different... Oh yeah, so yes, the doubles barely is affected by the limitations of the faction limit. Yes, you can do Durin's Folk, you can do Gondor, and they can both pull from exceptions. So you can practically have a combined force that feels like it's kind of normal and unaffected. This is the point, though. Doubles is meant to be, you are fighting with an ally. It's an allied nation, and so yes, absolutely you can bring two different armies, and this also allows for, if you come to Nova without a partner and we have to assign you one, it won't really matter, since we don't want you both to have to play the same faction. That'd be crazy. So lastly, for the grand tourney, can I take one faction with heroes and troops from more than one list? Yes. So you can take Angmar with the trolls and with Denizens of the Dark, and if you're good, now you may notice the exception list affects good more than it does evil. The reason really is because of ring raves. Evil has already a pretty easy time with one faction, but good, a lot of their anti-ring rave capability, their anti-monster capability, are in these weird little like lists, hero lists that are running around. And so the good side has like, I think 7 exceptions on there. And that goes a long way to balancing out forces like Hobbits, Arnor, stuff like that. That's what makes them stay competitive. So yes, if you play Hobbits and you want to ally in Gandalf from the Fellowship on a cart, and then Galadriel, and then, whatever independent heroes, feel free to do it. You can keep leaping from one to the next. There is no limitation on it. Heck, you can literally make your entire army a list of exceptions. So, where you don't even declare a faction, really. If you pick the White Council and then just keep hodgepodging in stuff from Fellowship or, Wanderers of the Wild, you can absolutely do that. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. They are the exception list. They have no impact on the comp. So, other than that, I think actually we're starting to hit the last of our questions here. Not because we're out of questions, because the Mumak conversation took so much time. But I guess we'll get into the next question here. All right, and the next question is from King Banazai. He says, Dwarf Rangers carry longbows, which in the Hobbit rulebook is strength 3. I love the army of Thror. It is amazing. Do Bakar. So, yes, Army of Thor is awesome, and Dwarf Rangers, have to make a quick correction to that. Dwarf Rangers are Strength 2 bows, not Strength 3. Now, he said this actually in response to, I believe, I had mentioned something about the Dwarves. I forgot what it was, but in my last video I said they were Strength 2. The reason they're Strength 2, he is correct saying that the longbows in the Hobbit rulebook are Strength 3. Absolutely right. However, longbow is just the name of a bow in the Dwarf profile. If you look at it, in the Dwarf profile itself, it says longbow, parentheses, bow. So you'll notice if you look at, say, Citadel Guard, it doesn't say that. Well, actually, it'll say elf bow, thereby intending they meant strength 3. The longbows for dwarves are actually weaker in strength, just longer ranged. That was seeming to be intentional by the designers of the game. And yeah, so it is actually exempted from the Hobbit rulebook. You'll actually see this in a couple other instances. Like, for instance, Frodo's ring does not get affected by the Hobbit rulebook ring. So Frodo still phases through models, he still walks through walls and all that stuff, and he doesn't get the uber terror, and he doesn't get the other little things that the Hobbit rulebook ring gets. Why? Because his ring is clearly defined on what it does, similarly like to Sauron. Whenever you see any weapon in the book, if it has any type of parentheses or any type of clarifier, then that takes precedence over the Hobbit rulebook. And so that's why Dwarf Rangers have Strength 3. Anyway, guys, if you wanted me to talk about something in more depth, maybe the comp for Nova, I know a lot of you guys are thinking about going to Nova. We actually have a lot more people going this year, which is awesome, so I definitely can't wait, especially if you guys want kind of that jump onto Articon, it's actually we're actually invited the GBHL down, and we've invited a bunch of other teams down. So this is a great way to prepare for Articon as well for you local guys who are going to Articon. And obviously in Britain, we'll see you there. But yes, if you have any questions about Nova, if you have any more questions about the Mumak, just let me know and I will answer them in another video. All right, thanks guys. See you later.